It's coming for us. Artificial intelligence is coming for us all. The conspiracy theorists were right. First, it'll come for our jobs. Then, it'll come for our partners. And ultimately, it will come from our lives. Enslaving all of human civilization under a tyrannical regime. I find that quite hard to believe, particularly as I can't seem to even get a video to record without buffering and chopping and being awful, so my apologies for that. Alright, but before we ultimately all become slaves to our artificial intelligence masters, let's first see if it can do something positive for the human race. And in that instance, what I want to do is have a look and see what advice artificial intelligence can come up with when it comes to quitting gambling, when it comes to putting a stop to our gambling addictions. So I asked Chat GPT for its advice to stop gambling addiction. And it came back with a list of 10 points, which I'm going to go through, see what I think of its advice, and see ultimately if my position on this platform is going to be under threat from this uprising of artificial intelligence. All right. Obviously, that's a bit sort of tongue-in-cheek, but I was interested to see, what it would come back with when I asked it for help in quitting gambling and sort of starting a recovery. Firstly, just want to quickly say hi. Hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're keeping sane. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you want us to help support the channel, there will, as always, be a link to my Patreon in the description below. Anybody who signs up over there, really appreciate it. Really helps support me and support the channel. If you don't want to support me in that way, that's absolutely cool. But if you find that videos are interesting, then just do something like click like or subscribe or leave a comment or something like that. All right. And there might be even a bit of more shameless self-promotion at the end of this video, but we shall wait and see. But without further ado, let's see what Chat GPT has to say in response to my request for advice on gambling addiction. It says that quitting gambling can be challenging but ultimately rewarding. Here are some steps you can take to help you quit. Number 1, acknowledge the problem. Admitting that you have a gambling problem is the first step towards recovery. Understand the negative impact gambling has on your life and those around you. Now, 1-0 to AI here, really. Can't question that. Certainly, the acknowledgement of your addiction is an essential part of your recovery. What I would do is put in a step 1.2, which I do think is incredibly important, which is acknowledge, but also acknowledge a desire to stop gambling. All right, we all know, consciously or subconsciously, as I've spoken about many times before, when we need to cut down or abstain from gambling altogether. We have acknowledged the symptoms of our addiction and we have made a sort of assessment mentally of our position. But it's only when we actually decide that we want to do something about this, and I'm hoping that Chat GPT is going to come on to some of the other steps, that we can then make a start on our recovery and start making our lives better, putting ourselves on the right path. Number 2, seek support. Now, by clicking on this video, you have already sought support. I'm not saying it's the best support out there. There's tons and tons of gambling support now. Gambling has become more widely acknowledged as a real addiction up there, with obviously alcoholism and addiction to drugs, narcotics and all the rest of it. So ChatGPT says, you don't need to go through this alone. Reach out to friends, family or support groups such as Gamblers Anonymous. Talking to others who understand what you're going through can provide valuable support and guidance. Yeah, 2 for 2, I would say. Again, the only thing I'd add to that, which they've sort of touched upon there, is it's good to have a support network of people who understand from maybe a first-person perspective the dangers and the challenges of quitting gambling or getting into recovery, but also those people who just know you and have your best interests at heart, and people that maybe you can speak to very candidly because they are looking at it from an alternative perspective. But again, ChatGPT does seem to be a bit on the money here. Talking about money, number 3, third of 10, limit access to money. Restrict access to your finances to prevent impulse gambling. Consider setting up separate accounts, handing over control to of your finances to a trusted family member, or using financial management tools to limit your spending. I get the feeling, even by point number 3, that I'm very soon going to be out of a job. Yeah, perfect. If you, there are lots of triggers to gambling. We discussed alcohol in a recent video, but there are other triggers to gambling, stress and all the rest of it. But one of the main triggers I always had was the availability of funds. It's the reason that we go out and have a payday splurge. Yes, of course, part of that is probably because we were skint in the run up to payday, but sometimes just having the availability of funds allows us to treat ourselves to some gambling, and that in itself can be a trigger. So if we don't have access to the money, firstly, we can't gamble, but also that might actually help restrict the urges. All right, so just do what you can do to limit your access to any money you've got, and that could be all those great things it recommends there and things I've spoken about in the past, handing over control of your finances to a loved and trusted family member or friend, or you know, maybe setting up blocks with your bank. You know, most banks now offer, you know, to block gambling transactions. You might even be able to restrict your cash withdrawals if you know that you're going to go and draw some cash out and put it in the fob teas or the fruit machines or whatever. So, yep, Chat GPT, 3 from 3. Number 4, identify triggers. Oh, there you go, just touched upon that. Recognise the situations, emotions or thoughts that trigger your gambling urges. Yep, like I say, alcohol, it was a big one for me. You know, it kind of lowers your inhibitions, lowers your resolve as well, and it takes you a little bit out of yourself and maybe away from that core sort of conscious value you have that is keeping you on the right path to recovery. So just be aware of the things that may cause you to gamble. It doesn't necessarily mean, in my experience, that you have to stop doing those things. Obviously, in the case of drinking, it's a kind of a social norm in this country, rightly or wrongly. But obviously, if you know you're going to be partaking in something that is likely to trigger you to then go on and gamble, then take extra steps, such as limiting your money while you're still of a level and sober mind. Obviously, some things we can't avoid. If stress is a trigger, you know, life is always going to throw up stresses and challenges. So to kind of say, you know, I'm going to avoid all stressful situations to prevent myself from gambling, well, that's, you know, just literally not going to happen, is it? So, no, that makes an awful lot of sense. Number 5, find alternative activities. Fill your time with healthy, fulfilling activities that do not involve gambling. Explore hobbies, exercise, socialising with friends and family. Yes, I mean, I would say that certainly, at the risk of sounding, you know, that high horse thing that I try and steer clear of. Yes, obviously, if you can get yourself into sort of healthy habits, healthy hobbies, going to the gym, taking up some sort of sport, doing something positive and productive and constructive in lieu of something that is very destructive, that's fantastic, and ultimately that's a great goal to have. However, what I would say in addition to this is, in the very short term, or in the short to medium term even, find yourself other activities. All right, don't worry too much in the first instance about them being super healthy, super productive. Yes, you know, maybe you want to train for a marathon or start a new business. That's great, and you know, good luck to you if that's how you choose to fill your time instead. You know, I think that would ultimately be brilliant. But in the short term, if it means playing video games, if it means just chilling out and binge watching a series on Netflix, or whatever it is that, you know, will act as an immediate replacement for the time you would normally spend gambling, then, you know, do that, and then maybe think further down the line, further into your recovery, about more healthy, you know, hobbies and activities you could then ultimately replace your gambling time with. Number 6, practice self-care. Take care of your physical and emotional well-being. Get enough sleep, eat healthily, and engage in that. That's sort of a bit of an extension of the point before, isn't it? Yes, of course, if you can supplement gambling recovery with exercise and healthy eating and all this great positive stuff, you will feel very, you know, you'll feel the improvements much quicker, I think is what I'm struggling massively to say. The only thing I would say, again, very much like I said with the previous point, sometimes trying to take on too many changes in your life can become overwhelming. So yes, having a healthier diet, cutting out alcohol, going to the gym, all great things to do, but if you know and have acknowledged that the biggest problem in your life, the biggest hurdle and the biggest thing you need to overcome is your gambling, focus on that first and foremost, and don't worry too much about the other stuff. If you can address that at the same time, then great. But if that's not causing you that much harm, then don't torture yourself, because the more you try and do, the more you might actively, passively, you know, consciously or subconsciously kind of go, I can't do this, this is too much, this isn't me, this isn't who I am, it's too much of a change in your routine, too much of a change in, you know, your habits, and you'll just go back to where you were, possibly even being worse than you were before, because you've kind of resigned yourself then to that form of existence. So, yeah, self-care, very important, Highly, despite not necessarily practicing what I always preach, I'm a big advocate for it, but certainly in the short to medium term, just focus on the biggest changes, and of course that's naturally going to be gambling. Block access to gambling sites. Use software such as GamStop, I guess, things like that, or apps to block access to online gambling sites on your devices. Yeah, pretty straightforward. There will be some links, as always, to GamStop and what have you in the description below. So yeah, if you haven't done so already and you do gamble online, be that betting, the lottery, online slots, whatever, okay, then you can sign up to that. And GamStop particularly is very, very efficient in that respect. So as anyone else who promotes it will tell you, be sure that's what you want to do before you sign up, because it will stop literally every type of gambling online. Of course, I recommend that, but also, you know, please be sure that's what you want for you before you sign up, because it means you won't be able to do your lottery anymore, won't be able to put the footy bets down on the weekend and all the rest of it. So decide that's what you want, but GamStop, strongly recommended. And so yes, again, Chat GPT seems to be getting it right, doesn't it? Set goals and reward yourself. Set achievable goals for yourself and celebrate your progress along the way. Yeah, kinda. I think that's a bit of a nebulous one, to be honest. At the risk of sounding really self-helpy, I would suggest that if you do manage to maintain a recovery for, you know, any length of time, the rewards will start to come themselves. So I think setting arbitrary goals, certainly with the rewards, I like to say I think the rewards will come themselves. Goals, I am always concerned is a little bit of a red herring, because if you set a goal of a month, right, I want to be a month gamble free, and then I'm going to reward myself with something. Now, of course, what you don't reward yourself with is gambling, but that would act, I believe, as sort of almost like a mental finish line. Like people give up drinking for dry January or whatever, you know, they set January the 31st as, you know, an arbitrary end date to this period of abstinence, and that's fine. If you're not an alcoholic and you're giving it up for either charity or just for a bit of a health kick, then that's fine. And then on February the 1st, you can go out and have a few pints or whatever. If you're setting yourself a goal to quit gambling, then I think subconsciously you're going to reach that goal, and then your brain will kind of think, right, that's it, I've done that, tick. And then maybe you will allow the urges to overwhelm you. Personal experience, maybe that the rewards and goals thing might work for you, but like I say, I think the rewards will be self-actualizing, and I think the goals, well, ultimately the goal is, you know, one day at a time, isn't it? Just get through the day, don't gamble, and yeah, so let the rest take care of itself. Number 9, stay positive. Recovering from gambling addiction is a gradual process that may involve setbacks. Very true. Stay positive and patient with yourself. Go focus on the progress you've made and keep moving forward. Yeah, I think that's very true, and I think we should acknowledge any lapses and relapses we have, but they are part of almost everyone's recovery. If you go X amount of time without gambling, and that's a substantial increase on any amount of time you spent without gambling for however many years or whatever, that is progress. Yeah, you might financially or whatever have a lapse and take a step back, but then you are still further down the road because you have affirmed to yourself that you can do this. And you have to make sure that next time you get back on the wagon, you just stay on it longer and longer until eventually it becomes, you know, you disappear off into the sunset in this example I'm giving. Obviously, if you can get on into recovery and have no lapses, no relapses, then absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I think staying positive is very important. Acknowledge, but don't berate. If you've tried, you know, and you lapse, then use it as a bit of a learning curve. Figure out how you're able to lapse, as we discussed with blocks and what have you earlier on. You know, where is the door ajar that allowed you to get back in and gamble? Close that door, slam that door shut, so that option isn't open to you in the future. Get back on the horse and off you go. Like I say, acknowledge it, accept it, but don't beat yourself up over it, because ultimately what happens then is we end up in a negative mindset. And what do addicts do in negative mindsets? We seek escapism, often through the very poison that got us into that place in the first place. So, yep, good. And finally, Chat GPT says, seek professional help. Again, links in the description below to people who are far more trained, far more recognised as counsellors and all the rest of it than I am. I am merely a bloke in recovery with experiences, a lot of them negative, but also some positive ones that I share with you guys, so that you're not alone. You know, we're all in this together. If I talk about something that I've experienced, you know that you're not the only one experiencing it, but there are people who are there, trained, qualified to talk to you about these things and help you through. Some will work, some won't. You might go to GA meetings and they might be the best thing you ever do, and they might keep you on the right path. You might not find them particularly beneficial. You might go to counselling. That might be brilliant for you. It might really work. It might not. But ultimately, all these things are now available to you. So go, try them all, see what works, stick with it. And, we'll stay on this path together, and we'll have that better life. We'll get those rewards without necessarily setting the arbitrary goals. Remember that quitting gambling is a journey, and may it take time and effort. Stay committed to your recovery and be kind to yourself throughout the process. Yep, couldn't have put it better myself. Looks like Chat GPT is going to take over the Only Phil channel from now on in. So, it's been nice to know you all. You don't need me anymore. The internet and our machine overlords know far, far better than I ever will. But in all seriousness, some great advice there. There's a lot of stuff that I've touched upon and spoken about in the past, but I was just interested to see what artificial intelligence might have to say about quitting gambling. And that concludes that. Thanks very much for watching. Like I say, Patreon link in the description below if you wish to support me and support the channel, and have a human keep talking to you about these things. If not, just like, subscribe, do all that great YouTubery stuff, and I'll catch you all very soon. Thanks for your time, guys.